what we're going to talk about today is our Gen 3 coupe platform, but really the story, the magical, mythical story of the Spyder GT. Will it come back? What is the decision making, and how are we going to repurpose the coupe chassis? But yesterday it seems like everyone really dug on the, the 5-liter and that mighty 427 engine sounds. It's a mucky day, but it hasn't started raining out, so I was like, okay, you like engine sounds? Let's start off today with 9.5 liters, V12 LS power, 698 foot-pounds of torque, 750 horsepower with no tune, base tune. The thing's tunable up to like 850, 900 horse. So here's our Gen 3 platform. It's really the chassis that's underneath the coupe. It's got some modifications for this V12, of course, but wheelbase is the same. The track is actually, the wheelbase is a little bit longer because of some changes for the modern body, but same chassis with a pushback on the wheelbase. The track is a little wider as well, but check out the frame. Let me start up, Dave. You can do a walk around. Are we live?
It's seeming so.
Seeming so? Well, how about this? Hey, if you guys can see this, just say, hey Dave, how are you doing?
Chest thumping coming up.
All right. This thing is awesome. That's pretty fun, huh? I'm just gonna close the door so we get the warm air in here. Exactly. Dave, do a quick walk through the chassis.
Yep.
Okay, no worries. Guys, Factory 5 Live, great way to start out with 9.5 liters. It's just like an on and off switch. I mean, it is fun, fun, fun. So Dave, let me catch up with you over on the drawings here. So, guys, you've been flying with Dave and I solo. We've had some tech issues. Hopefully we've resolved those. Dave, are we live? You got some questions?
We've got lots of comments on Facebook.
All right, well, a V12 will do that to people. Now that engine is engine number 5 on the planet. We got it last SEMA, so I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, maybe they have 10, 15 engines out there, not many. That's a very expensive. There was a casting done in Australia. The internals, the valve train, the crank was all done in Southern California, to my understanding. Thing was dynoed and the sheet came out, and trust me, it's got the power. I mean, you just roast the tires at will, and you put a carbon fiber body on this car, and you're talking a 200-mile-an-hour monster. I didn't even want to think about the acceleration of this car. That engine's a little bit heavier, but what we want to talk about today is, let's zoom back to 2nd grade, 3rd grade. You're getting in trouble in math class because you're drawing pictures of cars. Well, I kind of get to draw pictures of cars in math class. It's just that it's not math class. So I'm going to give you a chance to do the same thing, and I'm going to challenge you because we're talking about the Spyder, the legend of the Spyder GT. Now, remember, Factory 5 was a very different company 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, my crazy brother cut the top off a coupe and said, hey, here's a product. Now, it needed a ton of work. And the first issue was a black car, had these humps on it. It was hideous. But the concept was, okay, we're a small company. Let's repurpose the chassis. Good idea. Poor execution. So let's zoom and see what we did on that car. This is the Gen 3 Type 65 coupe, and I had Mad Dog print out the Spyder GT. Now, we made about 30 of these cars. As a matter of fact, there's one on Bring a Trailer right now. I don't know if the auction already ended, but it was a twin turbo Buick. I remember seeing the car at the London Cobra show years ago, 18 years ago. The problem with this car, and I kind of highlighted that, geez, I sat on my markers. We actually filmed this before, and apparently we didn't have a Wi-Fi signal. Apparently we got it now. But what I pointed out is the problems with the Spyder GT, and one of the reasons why, the main reason it was suspended from production is because we had the GTM coming, and we were a really small company. We could only afford a certain number of resources, and it was in the way. But the windshield, yeah, it's great. You cut off a top, and we redid the rear section, got rid of the humps, and I think John did some real nice artistry on the rear end. Maybe we could have done some vents on the back, but the problem was we cut the coupe windshield. We had some steel supports for safety, but the truth is, it was always ugly. A period correct car like this deserves, you know, a slide-in chrome-on brass type British, Italian windscreen. So to do this Spyder GT today, if we were going to take the coupe and make a convertible out of it, Dave photoshopped this. Now, there's a couple things. One is I think this rear clip is just from the coupe. I think it would have to be changed. It's a little bit long. I think the, let me draw in a different color. I think the windscreen on this would have to be a slide-in windscreen. If you looked at the Spyder GTs that we did, the interior was, remember the original coupe was a race car. The Spyder GT interior, it had a different dash, but really it didn't have the kind of interior that you would expect on a Grand Touring car, you know, like that. It also didn't have a soft top. Now, a lot of guys don't run soft tops on their cars, but the truth is having a soft top, knowing it's out there if you ever want to buy one, is a huge difference. If you know there's no soft top out there, a lot of people are like, yeah, you know, I don't want to do it. So on the coupe, I think we've got such a great partner these days in rod tops. They make such high quality. Now they're expensive, but they really fit well. And this with a soft top might really be cool. But just so you know, this is a great example, the Spyder GT, and one of the reasons why it was discontinued is because it was an example of putting the cart before the horse. Over the years in product development, what we've learned a process is, you know, we write our design goals, we look at the chess pieces and say, where do we want to be in new product development? I talked earlier about the 7 P's of marketing at Factory 5. It's not the 4, it's 7. And how does that product mix come together into the next product or the next project of a product? And I'll talk about that later. But the Spyder GT was started out and it never had any thought put into it. It was just, hey, let's cut the top off this and see how it looks. That's not a good product design flowchart and pathway. So if we do it, we'll put some thought into the interior, into the mechanics of it, into a soft top, maybe resolve the front end a little bit differently. It's such a cool looking car, but I do like that it's the oxymoron car, the convertible coupe. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and maybe that's a good reason to do it. But think about our existing plan, and I'll challenge you guys, you know, to do this project, to do a modern day coupe convertible, it doesn't take a lot of resources. But when you commit those resources, if you've got a great move in chess, it might be a great move, but if it doesn't win the game, if it's not central to winning the game, sometimes you don't do it. So there's a lot of good products and good ideas that stay on the table because there were better ideas and better products. And that's been the case with the Spyder GT. I always wanted to come back to it. I think it's such a cool car, but we've never come back to it because we haven't had that little bit of resources and the time to date. Maybe I should in the future. Whether we do it on the Gen 3, whether we fix the eccentricities, the real pathway, the reason why we dedicated resources for the Gen 3 was the F9. So think about what we did on the Gen 3. We launched the car at SEMA, I think it was 2016, 2017. We came out, this was on the season finale of Fast and Loud, the Logano Coupe. That car got a lot of attention. It won I think it won a national championship. John George was telling me he won something, but he ran under a minute at VIR, or at Lime Rock, a minute 57 at VIR. Very, very fast car. And the derivative of this platform was always intended to be the F9. So you guys, this is the substrate of the F9. I mean, we're going to be able to put different engines in it, different drivetrains for sure, but we started out with something that would get people's attention. And you got to admit, a 9.5 liter V12 gets people's attention. I love the coupe, and I think the plan for the coupe makes a lot of sense. A coupe convertible, you guys are going to have to convince me to do it because it's going to require resources and resources that we really don't have, especially the fact that we're mostly shut down. We don't have the resources right now, and when we get back, we're going to be busy on production items. So now one last concept, and then I'll ask you guys some questions. You've got all these great products, you know. Think about the hot rod. When we did the 33 hot rod, I think I told you guys, we had a great idea for a 33 hot rod, launched in 2009. And that hot rod you could build a lot of different ways. It was the first time, and remember the first thing I ever bought was a Hot Rod magazine. That car was on the cover of Hot Rod magazine 2000, I think it was 2009. It was it was the first time we were ever on a cover of Hot Rod. But that hot rod was designed to have a chassis that had multi-purposes. Well, you could build it a lot of different ways, a roadster, coupe, fenders, and all that stuff. And then we came out with really the hot rod truck. So using the same chassis with a truck variant, totally different animal, same chassis. So, you know, platform engineering. And then now we bought out Rat's Glass and we took that Riddler Award-winning body from the Speedstar on the same hot rod platform. So I want you guys to think about there's chassis engineering and platform engineering, and they all fit into a product mix, but also, and these things are distracting, I printed these things out for a reason. We put a cut motor in it with snap-on tools. We built an 850, 900 horsepower hot rod truck. It debuted at SEMA last year. It was on Snap-on's From the Ground Up series. What a smash success. That truck was just absolutely drift monster, and Logano loves it. It's in his personal collection. Well, when we were building this, we're getting deliveries from FedEx, and we'd done a ton of fundraising for St. Jude Hospital with the guys at FedEx, the pilots at FedEx. And I was at Dan Mullally's house. He's a VP of marketing for FedEx, and I'm asking him what kind of car he drives. And this is the kind of car he needs to drive. Imagine Denny Hamlin. You may not be a Hamlin fan, you may be. This is the kind of car Denny Hamlin should drive. Imagine FedEx built this car. So we have products that also are attached to projects. And as a small company, you got to balance. Should you put money and time? It took us 3 months of engineering time and support and build to help build this Logano truck. Where are you going to spend that 3 months of commodity? Is it going to be on a new product, like the coupe convertible, the Spyder GT, the renaissance of that car? Or are you going to build a FedEx hot rod truck? Maybe this is a little bit faster, but there's marketing support that has to go with that. You got to ship it all over the country. You got to, there's work that has to be done. So Factory 5, we're always getting all these opportunities. And how you mix those opportunities is whether you sink or swim. So far, we've been swimming pretty well. So questions on the F9 chassis, questions on the Spyder GT, questions on what you think we should do with this chassis. Our plan was Generation 3 Daytona Coupe, make it bigger for bigger and taller guys, stiffer chassis, correct the body eccentricities, make it the best coupe on the planet. We did it, we knocked it out of the park. Sales are great on it. But part of that was also to do an R model for a track. We knew we wanted a car that could use aerodynamics. The Cobra was topped out on aerodynamics. But we also wanted the substrate for a second generation supercar. Our GTM was a mid-engine car. Those transaxle issues are tough. We're going to talk about the GTM and where that thing goes. We talked about it before, and Jim came up with some great ideas on keeping that product line alive. Subi's got a great new transaxle. There's some changes going on. But what about this F9? What about the coupe chassis? And what are your thoughts on a rebirth of the ultimate oxymoron car, the OC car, the Spyder GT? So, any comments, Dave?
Oh, lots of comments, and Brad on YouTube says you're living every car guy's dream.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Well, trust me, there's a downside. You got to work with people like Mad Dog. I'm just kidding. I make fun of Mad Dog all the time. Let me just say something. Mad Dog came to the showroom with his dad. His dad, Craig Lindsay, had bought a Cobra, and he came in and he said, "Hey, my son's looking for a job, and all of us want to take care of our kids. And here's Craig. He likes the company, and he thinks it's a good fit." I said to Mad Dog, I gave him no quarter. I said, "Look, we got an open house coming up. You want to film it? You want to shoot it? You want to write a web post for it? Do it. I want it on my desk Monday morning." The open house was Saturday. He didn't sleep all weekend, Saturday night, all day Sunday night. And Monday morning, he delivered a huge amount of photos, great editorial, a video even with Tom Cruise, The Danger Zone. Remember that, Mad Dog? And he's been working here ever since, and what a treasure. And I know I make fun of him a lot, but he's a dear friend, and we work pretty closely. So, yeah, I didn't even remember the question. I'm just, telling everybody how much you're...
Question, do we offer right-hand drive options for our kits?
Yeah, we do. Slowly over the years, we've kind of engineered it. If you were at SEMA maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, the 818 debuted with a right-hand drive, because a lot of the guys, remember the 818 was export. So if you want to exclude the old British colony countries, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of the Far East, and Britain for sure, which has a vibrant kit car community, we did the left-hand, right-hand drive for that. Now the Hot Rod and the Roadster for sure are right-hand drive. So I know Australia, you can build a Mark IV Roadster in right-hand drive. So yeah, there are some little differences. You've got to talk to the engineers. Like if you're doing a Hot Rod, I don't know if we have the right steering rack. I know we do finally on the Cobra, but yeah, so definitely on the right-hand drive.
And what do you see being the most popular engine in the F9?
That's a great question, because let me just, you stay there, Dave. The cool thing about these Facebook Lives things is I feel like I can just tell you the way the world is, and there's no marketing filter, and it's three-dimensional. This is for flash, no doubt about it. If I put a regular modular 5.0 in it, I think the car would be faster around a corner, it would brake better. It's a cast iron block, so you're talking about an 800-pound engine. Whereas sub 500-pound category, if I got a Coyote that's making, or a 5.2, that new Illuminator motor is what we're putting in the driver. So the driver that we're building, But as a show car and as a car to get attention from the press, it's an American V12 sports car. You want to go up against Aston Martin, you're not doing it with a 5.0. But I'll tell you what, most people, in my opinion, are going to run the running gear that works in the coupe. Remember, this Daytona coupe is the similar, to almost exact same chassis, different upper cage, and what we did with the IRS, we pushed the rear end back. Same chassis though, so that proven chassis and all the drivetrain components that go in this car will go in the F9. So I personally think the 5.0 and the 5.2, I think the 5.0 is going to be number one. But that doesn't mean a guy can't put a push rod motor in it. If he's got a hot rod 289 or something like that, I think though that this is a high-end car. It's going to have a all carbon fiber body. This will be our best car we've ever made. I don't know how many guys are going to hit the V12, but I think the 5.2 will be reasonable. I think for the money into this, I just don't see the return. It just is really, really cool to start off of Facebook Live with the sound of this thing. So, yeah, what else you got, Dave?
Have we considered doing any turnkey options for any of our kits?
We have, and I've looked at it a million times. You know, we're a parts manufacturer, and what a lot of people don't realize is maybe 25% of our business is replacement parts. We're one of the few places where you can get an 87 and 93 gas tank. We sell Mustang parts, radiators, replacement parts, brake parts. So that's a vibrant part of our business, and through this shutdown, we're servicing that part of the business. But at the end of the day, a parts and engineering company is very different than mechanics that are building finished cars. So I've looked at that business plan. I kind of consider it the siren song. I feel like it's pulling me towards the rocks and it's going to wreck the company because I know what we do. We're good at parts and engineering. We've been really good at build-it-yourself car kits. But vehicle manufacturing, I could tell you a case study list of all the really, really smart people who have gone right up on the rocks, whether it's DeLorean or Tucker or Bricklin is a favorite one. And I love Fiat parts, so Bricklin bought all the Fiat parts when they left North America, and I still talk to Matt at Midwest Bayless, and if you're into Fiat stuff, they got that stuff, but still, did any of those vehicle manufacturers make it? Right now, I think Elon Musk is probably one of the only ones at Tesla that has been a truly disruptive company. You know, I invested in Local Motors, they haven't gone anywhere. I mean, it's a really tough space to be as a small volume manufacturer. As a matter of fact, if you go to Wall Street and you say, I'm a small volume manufacturer, I want to make these cars, even though you can, even though the regulations have changed a lot to make it more easy, I think you'll be laughed out of the room. I think that's one of the highest risk businesses where we focused on parts and engineering. And the good thing about parts and engineering is not only are we compliant with the letter of the law, we're compliant with the spirit and the intent of the law. We're not building cars. So we're not entering the commerce stream with finished cars. We've had that conversation before. So the long-winded answer to your question is, I just don't think we're going into finished cars. And the other last point is, we've got such a great cadre aftermarket builders out there. I mentioned Jeff Collins at Whitby Automotive. Those guys are the best. Right here, Ron Everett yesterday, you know, he was cruising by looking for parts. And so yeah, any other questions, Dave? So what our purpose is to take a look at this and say, well, what would you do? You're driving the bus. You know I want to see that Spyder GT come back. And the coupe convertible me, I still have the drawing over my desk, and it's going to stay there. And maybe I'll scratch that itch someday. Right now, if you ask me, I don't have the resources to commit to it. Even though it's maybe just 5% of our resources, I'd rather use those resources to get this to market as our iconic flagship supercar. And some of the ideas Jim had on the GTM make it like, well, I'm going to go right back to the GTM then, and then every single year that goes by, you know, that car gets forgotten. So I've talked a lot, and this is the second time I walked through this, and we're about, what, 25 minutes, Dave, 20 minutes?
Close to 20.
Yeah, so guys, Factory 5 Live, and I know you're duping this on YouTube as well, right, Dave? Mm-hmm. I'll follow up, you know, answer some questions you guys have. Maybe tomorrow we'll do something fun. No, what could be more fun than this? We really haven't had a very good spring, so I haven't had a chance to get out. And not only that, you know, Dave and I have stayed, you know, 5 or 6 feet apart. We've been working together. I can't really have him sit in the seat next to me and go for a drive, which is what we really want to do, just tear it up with the car and show you guys, you know, kind of the handling of each car. But maybe tomorrow we'll do the truck. I know some guys were asking about the 818, but unless you guys have anything else, it'll be Dave out. 3, 2, 1, Dave out.